The first mistake I made as a founder was not having a GTM motion from day one. I realized that in an early stage company, there are only two things that matter. The first is your product, and the second is the GTM motion behind it. Little did I know that without much of a personal brand or an audience of my own, GTM could become very, very, very challenging. Today's episode is dedicated towards the nuances of all things go-to-market. Today with us, we have Maja. Maja is an advisor and a mentor to 350 plus startups, including some of the best ones, and is also the founder and investor of Growth Lab. Maja has been a CMO, a head of growth, a growth strategist, and a leading voice behind all things GTM. In fact, she just recently published a book titled The GTM Strategist and is now already a best-selling author. We are so excited to have Maja with us today. Welcome to the show, Maja. How are you doing today?
Vikram, thank you so much. So did you just say to people that if you build it, audience will just not magically appear? I think that was the message that I was picking up. And I mean, it's such a common message with the second or third time founders, because at the beginning, we all think that we are building something amazing and we deserve people's attention and that like we shouldn't worry about marketing a week before our launch. But I love it how you say it, that GTM is the part of the launch and it should start much sooner than you just like panicking 1 week before the launch, how to get the website traffic.
Absolutely. And I have made that mistake again and again. And everybody I meet these days, I'm like, you need to change the way you're approaching building your personal brand. Because I think it's when founders go through that journey that they realize how tough it is once they have an idea in mind to get even a validation, or once they have a product in mind to actually sell it to someone. So I completely resonate with you there. But Maya, I'm very curious about your career, right? Like you just published a book. How does it feel being an author? Did you ever visualize yourself being an author? Was it the plan all along, or did it just happen naturally?
And survive to tell the story. Nevertheless, look, the book was just like this weird evolution of my career. So I started at startups, right? And I was a marketing / business school person. So you know what's the first thing that developers made me do? Bake pancakes for them. And I should really learn something else because this is not sustainable. I don't want to be a glorified COO who's baking pancakes for developers. So I went and I studied this field of growth hacking, which is very interesting to me because it's scientific methods, right? It's about making decisions with more confidence, collecting scientific proof. I was just like, so yeah, don't guess it. Why don't we just launch experiments and see what happens? But the devil is in the details, always. Because if you are just starting out, you don't have really large data samples. There is no way you could be running a legitimate A/B test. And even if you tried to do it, you might be attracting the wrong type of the audience. And that was my main concern with the GTM stage and just like early stage founders, because, you know, if you have like thousands of visits on your website, of course, like everything could be read from data, but the rest, what is going on before you achieve this product market fit was a So I locked myself in my house for a year in order to tackle this science. It was more of this evolution of my career of what I thought is a really underserved market. And you know how it is, not everybody has the privilege of raising millions in Silicon Valley and like having 20 million to spend before they make any money. For me, it was mission critical that we test product market fit. So if the market wants our solution as well as willingness to pay, can we build a sustainable model out of this and bootstrap our company? So that was a question that I was very passionately tackling. And at the end of the day, after a year, we come up with a beautiful handbook of the recipe, how to get to the product market fit and beyond, which was field tested with more than 100 experts. And I was just like so lucky that I was building this book in public as well, because just like frequency of feedback loops that I have been getting from the audience, from all the experts from related areas has been incredible. And yeah, I'm hyped. I almost miss my writing days because, you know, life is not the same after you publish the book. There are different obligations that you have to do.
No, I can totally imagine. And some of it would be very good, but some of it can be very annoying. And Maya, I have one more follow-up question to what you just mentioned. So a lot of people are unhappy with their career, I'm sure. And I love the term that you used, baking pancakes for the developers. It's brilliant. But a lot of CEOs...
No, I was literally doing this. It was not a metaphor.
I think that developers are very, very, very fortunate. But a lot of people were in your spot and they are no longer today in the same spot as you. You made a conscious call to move to go-to-market, which is a very specific thing. You made a conscious call to focus on things related to how a business scales. How did that shift come in? Were you intentionally looking out for something like GTM? Why pick GTM out of all the other things that you could have done when you stopped baking pancakes, for that matter?
Okay, so just like regarding pancakes, that was 15 years ago. I'm no longer a young woman. So, you know, much has happened since. I was working with startups a lot. I was working with corporates. And for me, it all comes down to a very simple ranking system, right? So in terms of which opportunities am I pursuing, it's just like there are like money grabbing potential, like how much money can you make out of this, right? So what's their willingness to pay? That's of course the business that we are doing. The second one is the growth potential. Then the third one is proximity. Do I know these people? Can I get to them? Is sales cycle maybe like 3 years long that I couldn't endure? So it's a rational side of it. And then at the very end, I have this thing called joy level. And joy level for me has been a huge game changer because, as you are a solo entrepreneur, your business is also your life, and it directly impacts your life quality. And of course, you have to go out to collect those badges in order to just like prove that you are good enough, that you are like literally the experts that you are claiming. But at the end of the day, as you are optimizing for the life quality and just like legacy and impact that you are trying to create, I think that after you're secure, after you have your fundamentals in life kind of figure it out, that it is no brainer to put more weight into the joy factor of it. And I kind of was thinking as well, like, what is the impact that I try to make in this world? Because, before I did a lot of like advertising and e-commerce, and with some things, it was just like a little bit disturbing even to think about, for example, sport betting and industries like this. I was like, literally, do I want to use my brain in order to initiate this stuff in our world? And I don't want to sound like a freaking hippie, but the older I am, more important that is to me.
Now, so I see that the logic or the rationale you come back from. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Just Crunch It. I'm your host, Vikram, and Just Crunch It has been launched for anyone who cares about data. This podcast is for you if you are starting up or rethinking how things will evolve with all the latest technological shifts. This is for you if you use data in your day-to-day or are just thinking about getting started with a career in data analytics or data science or anything related to data. We touch upon nuances, areas where data is overglorified or underlooked, mistakes, perspectives, people thinking about data in different way, future, AI, amongst all the other things. The goal is simply to ask some very hard-hitting and honest questions about data, business, and everything in between to develop a sense of not being left behind as things around us are changing at a very, very, very fast pace. For establishing and for everybody's context here, how do you define GTM? Like, what is go-to-market?
Sure. So for me, it's much more than a product launch. For me, it is about creating a comprehensive plan, how to achieve your objective when you are introducing new products to new market. And that can be portrayed in a couple of different scenarios. So product launch, of course, is the obvious one. Then if you are opening new markets, so if you are like launching existing products to a new market segment or new geography or something like that. And the third one is if you are relaunching, if you maybe selected the wrong initial market and you would have a fighting chance elsewhere. Whenever you have these variables of like product, audience, and willingness to pay, go-to-market comes to place. And in my opinion, everything is so connected with your selection of target markets, right? Because when you select a person that you are selling to, you are also determined by the price. And in the second bucket, it's also the channel selection. So if you are having this data product, which is being marketed to developers, of course, you won't be doing meta ads because everybody has ad blocker. And it's more important to penetrate into different communities and do like more educational materials. So for me, the top of the pyramid has always been selection of the target audience.
Wow. But as someone who has seen so much, you have it on your profile that you have worked with about 350 plus companies. That's insane. Like there are not as many days in a year, working days in a year, as the number of companies you have sort of worked with. And I wonder if someone like you thinks about GTM today, does it still follow a playbook? Is there like a rule book all the time, or does it still get blurry? You work on it, you figure out, okay, this is how things are going to work for this particular scenario. What I'm coming to is maybe there are founders who are listening to us who are thinking about, I'm too early in my journey. I don't have this one persona that is defined. Have you ever worked in scenarios or challenges, which is where clarity gradually comes in? Like what are some of the most challenging GTM motions you've worked on?
I'm in business of tackling unknown unknowns. This is literally everything what we are doing, because the underground premise is that every good strategy is proprietary. So you cannot just not go and grab the sneak playbook or something like that and hope that you will be like a unicorn company and you follow that exact recipe, because that has always been done. So the best strategies have a little bit of element of subversiveness and are unique and proprietary. That's really important to know. And this element of proprietary usually comes from knowing your target audience really well. That again is a chicken and egg question, because you can decide for one audience, but in reality stakes are high. So we always recommend you to test at least like 2 or 3 different audiences before making the final call, and just like calling this shot shots based on your intuition or previous experience would be stupid because every product is unique as well. So what we usually do is to have a couple of hypotheses of what the best target segment could be. For example, I'm just like working with an AI tool now. They are building like this amazing AI tool builder, and they have a couple of hypotheses what could be their first initial segment, which we like to call in theory beachhead segment, because marketing and sales wise in our early stage phase, we would like to focus all our efforts into a single segment. But before we can decide which one is it, we need some proof that we are on the right path here. And for this AI builder software, they have a couple of hypotheses of what could be their target audience. The first one is banking sector. In banking sector, like they have these language models, recognition, yada, yada, and they're building what I like to call as an amateur chatbots that intelligently answer to the banking questions. The second hypothesis is just like that their initial segment would be image recognition for e-commerce. So e-commerce could produce like marketing materials better, right? The software at this stage is not really that specialized for a vertical, for an industry. It has many use cases, but marketing wise, it would be unsmart for us to test them all at the same time because we could get very messy samples. There is a third component to it, which is like, let's say leap of faith assumption for now, but the founder would very much like it to be true, which is just like to let this builder out into community to people who are actually developing AI solutions and see what are the use cases that they will bring to the table and how this founder could choose between these three segments. First, they can do interviews. But if they do interviews, if people say something, it doesn't mean that they will do it. It's a leap of faith assumption still. The second thing is that we can try and like target an offer to three different segments and see where can we have the seeds of a sustainable business. And that was actually already proven in their case in banking, because by now they literally onboarded 3 banks and they are building this weird chatbot for banking to bootstrap through the chasm. And that was like really, really, really early confirmed that this will be the first segment that they will be targeting, because just like the investments in here is that they need to see some traction, right? And as soon as you can guarantee to win some traction, it's either you're bootstrapping and you have the money to pay for your developers and product teams, or you can get a much better investment deal. So this process is absolutely essential. You don't know what you don't know. You have to go out there and test it. But just like my point of view is that if people say something, it doesn't mean that they will sign your term sheet.
Yeah. So a cookie cutter approach is not going to cut. And that's what I'm hearing.
No.
I'm also hearing that templates don't work, but you brought in AI. And in this case, there's an AI company that you're working with. But that brings me to another question, which is in this whole process of go to market, as companies are figuring out, and again, a lot of people in our audience are in different stages of their journey. Have you personally, being so close to the GTM motion across various startups, seen anything in the last 1.5 years as this AI wave is crawling all around us that makes you believe that, okay, GTM could look different in future? Is there a tool people should be using or a tech that has in particular excited you as far as GTM particularly goes?
I wouldn't say that just yet, but I've seen these huge leaps in productivity, right? Even with marketing tasks such as copywriting and like retouching images and something like that. What it brings to the industry is that the entry barriers are lower than ever, meaning that builders can just like go and use no-code tools or just like train their own bots in order to get the job done. And that means more competition and even more importance of a winning go-to-market strategy, which is proprietary and will actually get you across the chasm when you start winning. I don't think that we are post-hype just yet. I see a lot of really smart implementation. I mean, I've been using AI a lot for my own book launch, for just like content creation, but there is a certain element which needs to be ours and proprietary. So if you want to utilize AI, make sure to train it on your own sample, because otherwise we are turning into this vanilla landscape and things are no longer proprietary, right? They are no longer ours. A lot of things has been happening, and also in terms of productivity, I mean, every SaaS tool that I'm using right now has its like AI beta version something, but what is projected to be like an outlier in the future based on open view analysis is horizontal AI first product. And I say AI because I'm freaking Slav, but AI products. And this is something which is actually believed by serious investors, by smartest people in the industry, that is definitely the future. But how to build these products is still like a mystery, not only in terms of products, but also how we market them. Because if you recall this story of the founder with the AI solution that I'm working with right now, he has to go to these freaking banks and do classical sales, right? He has to go set up a meeting, go through compliance, do the enterprise thingy. And it's still something which is like, in terms of sales process, pretty old school. Will that change anytime soon? Probably, but you also know that evolution is a slow process, right? So technology changes much faster than humans. So even given all these technologies changes, I still believe that knowing a thing or two about marketing, sales, positioning, messaging, and overall human psychology is still something that we should pay close attention to.
Yeah, but you mentioned something very interesting, that the market barrier or barrier to entry has gone down. And I've been working or talking to at least a lot of founders, of course, not as much as you, but it looks like a lot of people are just feeling lost because of two factors. One is AI is evolving. There are things that are getting more and more obsolete or not much of a big deal as new technology is coming in. And then today, with no code and all of these advancements, so many more people are competing with you that the pie that you have for yourself is getting smaller and smaller. So it looks like everyone is panicking in terms of, hey, should we build this? No, this is not going to go to 100 million in revenue as soon. Let's switch to something else. And someone very experienced came and told me a while back that maybe going the service agency route might be a better way for the first time in last decade and a half. If you truly want to scale a product, actually go behave like a service agency, deploy the product or the service, even if it's very customer, it's very different for different people. So you know who you are targeting. But as you go, let's say to 10 banks, all of them need a very different product, and then start identifying patterns, because that may give you just more of a breathing ground and like experience and a rationale and a logic behind saying what is it that you truly want to scale into a product. So of course, after that, you can decide to like continue the service or outsources or do whatever. But what are your thoughts there? Do you think that today the go-to-market motion should have a service agency route for a while people are trying to figure out whether there is a PMF or not?
Oh, that was a loaded question. Thank you, Vikram. You are a good intellectual challenger and a critical thinker. So let me try to debunk this real quick. Again, I would see it in a frame of just like product market fit validation, right? If you did like 50 interviews and bank would say, okay, I would have it, it doesn't mean any money on your bank account. But if you are co-creating a pilot or a proof of concept with that specific client, you are already getting paid to get the job done. And it is something which is like much more certain than if just like the bank people tell you that they would use it in a survey or in an interview, right?
Yeah.
So it's better, but here is the trap. Service businesses are very unscalable. Usually, as you are adding more humans, more employees to the equation, you get like diminishing returns because the initial team has a much higher added value. And again, like I'm not saying that you can like outprice yourself out of the market, even though that I have seen those cases, but here is the devil is in the details, right? In terms of GTM, I think that we should also be considering the speed of insight, speeds of feedback loop. And if you are working with 10 banks with very, very, very different use cases, I don't think that you have the best intelligence for the product just yet. Why? Because there is somebody who's obsessing with this problem just now, and things are not adding up nicely, right? So you are not building upon what you have initially constructed. You are all the time tackling unstructured challenges and hope that the puzzles will magically come together. This is how I prefer to think about this. When it comes to my own product development, if I cannot pre-sell it with a spreadsheet with just like some weird demo or like a presentation or a call, for me, it's not investable. If there is no pain point which is strong enough that people would just like be shut up and take my money, even though it doesn't exist right now, this is not like the type of business that I would like to invest my own personal money. There are different businesses in terms of capital intensity. There are different rewards for doing this as well. But if you are bootstrapping, I genuinely believe that being laser focused into solving a single problem again and again and again could end up in a really nice productized service first, so that you kind of write out a standard operation process and then you replicate it to a product and you have like a very nice requirement and a good initial pool of customers. Or that we should be just like cautious that we are not turning into somebody's internal agency, right? Because that happens a lot in practice too. You know, you have this client and they are big and they know that you need them. And then they start to come up with like all sorts of different demands. And I like to make a joke sometimes in these processes that the process of buying this solution costs you more than the client actually pays for it. So this is something that we need to just like keep in mind in terms of our product vision and product roadmap, that we are not like customer first only, but we are having and leading with our own vision as well, that we don't end up to be like a outsourcing agency for somebody else. I don't know if it was like a rent, but this is how I feel about this, coming from a country which is traditionally outsourcing place for others.
No. I love it. And I'm almost thinking as you were talking about it, that it looks like the playground will keep on changing, but you need to still have a very cool head and approach it by not like just going through the hype, taking a step back, looking at whether it's actually even worth it. But I'm also thinking the next generation of founders that are going to come in are probably going to have 200 times, maybe a million times more powerful of a no code offering, a million times more powerful of an AI model. So for the kids who are like, let's say, just growing up today, do you think there is a different skill set that would benefit them as they go on to lead their own companies or lead their own go-to-market motions? Like what is the skill set? I don't know if we have parents in our audience space, but if someone is listening and thinking about what they should teach their kid, what should they really be teaching their kids?
Ask better questions. Because causation and causality is super weird in this world. There are a couple of problems when it comes to young generation. The first one is attention. The second one, not saying lack of critical thinking, but not far away from this, so that they are not like second guessing what is wrong here. And the third one is just like this component of qualitative research, or just like empathy and some knowledge of human psychology and evolutionary traits that we have, to just like know that people are not making decisions only rationally. And let me unbank a couple of ones because I think they are really important and support them. Why? Example. Do you know what is a heat pump?
Heat map?
Heat pump.
No.
It's a machine.
No.
Okay. So if you have a house, you can either like heat it on electricity, which is like inverted climate device, or you can like use oil, gas, or like wood, whatever, right? So there are alternative heating system. And I was like having this decision done 6 months ago, and it was one of the best decisions that I did. So everybody's raving right now that we should all heat on electricity because EU is getting like extremely environmentally friendly. But I did a spreadsheet and I calculated how will I be affected if I take this subvention for like going only to electricity versus if I become like dependent on the cost of electricity. And at least like where I'm from, 60% of the country is covered by forest. And we have like this huge biomass potential here, right? Does it make sense to like heat your house only on electricity and be dependent on whatever is going on with these prices? Not so much. I mean, it would be a locally okay solution to take, but globally, I would be exposed to too much risk. And I know that this was just like a weird example. So let me another one, which is more product related. We had like one app, which was a fitness tracker, right? And the founder said that they want to have 500 downloads and we shouldn't spend more than like $2 per install. And that's a really fierce metric if you are in this competitive fitness industry on a saturated market. And we were like, okay, the only way how could we achieve this is to run some ads and hope for the best.
Yeah.
We achieved the targets, both targets. The problem was with activation, because when we were running mainstream advertisement, who came into the application were just like users who don't even exercise, but are maybe inspired by weight loss or just like the idea of active life. So the activation level, just like people who finished the onboarding was 7%, but people who actually did sport with the app was 2%. Only 2% of people who were attracted in the product like had this experience of the added value and could potentially be monetized later. And we were like, this was such a wrong logic in which we should be making the decisions, right? It's not like following this KPI by like, get us 500 registrations, however you can. It's about thinking broader and asking better questions. A better question in this case would be how to get 100 active runners. And I don't care about the channel anymore. They can be Facebook groups. They can be like Strava groups. They can be whatever. But just like the way how we are framing this question is supremely important. And that I think is the next superpower, to just like ask better questions.
Yeah, I think that's partly true even for founders today. Like we've already reached that stage where we need to ask better questions and question the convention. And I could see that energy in you, Maya, as you were talking about it, how passionate you are about this topic. I want to digress a little bit from our core topic and whatever we do on these podcast episodes. In the whole career that you have had around GTM, is there something that particularly is like a very amusing story that you could share with us? A very funny outcome that happened? Maybe you were working on a GTM motion, it turned out to be something absolutely different. You just discovered a very hilarious insight, anything like that. I was wondering, like, it looks like Maya has a lot of questions, and then you were talking about how you approach everything with spreadsheets and so on. So I have to ask that.
Well, maybe not just like the funny story, but something which was really, really, really concerning in terms of pricing. For the majority of founders, pricing is a really tough question, especially if you come from a market where purchase parity is not like US level, then like you have sort of like weird mental constraints in your head, but my mom is making that much a month and it is really fair that people are paying me that much, and what will our neighbors think if I buy a new car or something like that. So for a majority of folks, it's really psychological at this point, almost an inverted side of imposter syndrome, right? And what we end up doing is pricing our products too low. I had a case of an analytics software they sold to Walmart in the US. Their license was 10K a year, not a month, a year. And you know, if you have a client so demanding as Walmart, I mean, it's a great reference. It's a great case study. You want to keep them happy. The problem is that it's literally exhausting your firm. And just like by this silly pricing decision that they made, they kind of doomed themselves to being like super dependent on a client, which was paying a fair price, like whatever price was offered, they were paying. And this was like really important deal for them. But at the end of the day, like the whole team was just like dealing up with the client, not like with the product development anymore, right? And just like this decision, this ambiguity slowed them down. I mean, it's not a funny story, but it is definitely something that I want to say again and again and again, because pricing is a unit of value transfer. And if you are serving to a large client, such as Walmart, such as Disney, such as whatnots of Fortune 500, they are extracting much more value out of your product than if you would be selling to Vikram or Maya for the other side, which would be like, we would be probably paying this from our own personal budget. But nevertheless, you know, it's really important to have different packages and that you have this feedback loop of how much value are you creating, especially with AI. Back to the banking founder. So by this chatbot, they calculated that they are saving this bank $500,000 a year. How should they price it? Are they entitled to get at least 10 or 20% out of this value created, which was being there? Of course. Should they price it at $50 a month? Definitely not. Definitely not, because they would be leaving a bunch of money on the table for this huge problem that they are solving. And these are, again, the concepts that we should be thinking about. If you solve a problem to like a large e-commerce company or a bank, their savings, their added value will be so much higher, or even like higher revenue, than if you are solving it to a mid-market or even to solo entrepreneurs. Again, coming back to the question that whatever is your target audience, whoever you are selling, is the first principle thinking of whatever other decision you will be making down this process.
Yeah, Maya, but is this decision, let's say in the example that you gave for pricing, or we were just talking about GTM and a whole bunch of things that we have to consider, are these subjective decisions? Because maybe in an early stage, you are dealing with one Walmart, and let's say you have made the mistake of quoting something wrong to Walmart. The next Fortune 500 that you are going to, you should have learned from whatever you did, and then you quote them a higher number or whatever you think is right. Maybe after a month, you still realize that, okay, this is still lower. Is that a very data-driven process, or is it more of like hit and trial because you don't have those many clients in the early stage? And this, like, so a broader question is GTM in general more of data-driven, or is it best left for later?
Okay, when it comes to pricing, you are always in GTM playing in the wiggle room of 20 to 30% plus minus of existing alternatives, right? And existing alternatives are not only softwares. It can be a consultant who does this job for them. It can be that they like price it internally for however they are pricing this job. So it's really important to do the research, because whenever a problem exists, people are already solving it. And it's your job to figure it out. How much are they paying for it right now? And these are your natural barriers in which you are moving at the beginning. If you don't know what this number is, I mean, I don't want to be shady or something like that, but you can just like ask a friend to ask for the offer, or somebody else. You can just like ask your clients for a comparison sheet, how they did the comparison when they were collecting offers, right? You can ask your current prospect why they went with somebody else instead of you and learn from that. So there is a lot that you can research in order to make these decisions with more confidence. However, pricing also has a psychological component, especially at the beginning when you are really hungry for business, when you want to have this pilot and this reference in order to unlock the next opportunities. You would take a hit, but it would be a strategic hit, and you should plan. You should already try to encounter how can you potentially bring this project further on later, so they will not forever be at this price that was literally a honeymoon price when you are starting out, right? And here is your opportunity. Whenever a product is getting better, you could be capturing more value out of this, right? Because you are delivering more value and there are new features features, there are like new use cases that they should be expanding to, you can develop this account. So even if you are penetrating into the accounts, yeah, you can like reduce this number, but it's called penetration pricing. So even if you are having like really this like set your foot in the door offer at the beginning on, you can still build more value later on. My hypothesis is that GTM decisions are scientific decisions. However, there is a little bit of element of first serendipity to it. If you know the right people, if you have the right timing, if you are just like convincing enough in order to make the deal. And also just like, how are you optimizing for your frame of thinking? Are you optimizing for adoption? Would you like to get the deal done and just like spread your solution throughout different accounts to gain the numbers? Or are you optimizing for profit? So it's also your personal interest.
Yeah.
In that beautiful intercept, things happen.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think the key message there is that ask thing, like just go in and ask. A lot of people shy away from it, and it has helped me personally. If I just go, when someone comes and says, how much is this going to cost? Instead of like just shooting out a number, sometimes just taking a step back and saying, I don't know. Here is like how we have been thinking about it, but could you tell me what is like the range that makes you comfortable? It goes so long in like making the pitch relevant for both the sides. So that's super valuable, and I can attest to that. But Maya, we are almost nearing the end of our recording here. And
no, I'm having so much fun. Come on.
I
have more examples to share.
I wish like we should probably figure out a way of learning more from all of these experiences and case studies that you have done. And I keep thinking about, oh my God, I'm connected. So I have intentionally over the last 3.5, 4 years, for sure, for over 4 years now, I have intentionally tried building relationship with very established people, as in someone who's actively hustling. You can see that, okay, they're onto it. And it is in the process of all of these discoveries that I often run into these gem of pieces of a blog or like a video clip, which is 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever. And then I just keep wondering why are not many people seeing this? Like, how can I just broadcast this to people and say that, hey, forget everything that is running into your inbox today. Probably this is what you should be reading at. So when you say that you have many more examples to share, you almost remind me of that. But I have a very funny question for you. Like, let's say I take away everything you are doing today from you. It's just, it doesn't exist. And you have $5 million to build a business. What would you do? Would you again start a GTM advisory thing?
I would give them away, and I would just like go and bootstrap from a get-go, because in my world, if the market is not willing to pay for it, you don't have a business there. I enjoy the grind so much. And just like probably also my happiness level, right? For example, to donate this to people who would like to learn AI or programming or something like that, I think the impact of this investment would be so much bigger. But nevertheless, I don't want to sound like this Republican wife. I take a lot of pride by just like doing everything myself. And I don't think that any amount of money would change how I'm making this decision, because for me, doing business is very joyful. It's almost a game. I get to meet awesome people from all around the world. So I probably wouldn't change a thing.
But any learning that you have had that you'd like to share with all of us on a closing note, any learning? Because what you just said, that's very deep. Not a lot of people would say what you have said, that too over something that is going to go public. And I see what you're referring to. I have seen both sides of the equation. I have friends who are running bootstrap businesses, and I have friends who are running VC-backed businesses. Even beyond the satisfaction of just giving away and actually helping people, there's this whole sense of decision making, or at least, as I would say, a lot of founders these days struggle with, oh, we have to prove that we are able to deliver on what we were promised or whatever we raised for. And sometimes it just takes a lot more time than what you would have hoped.
And money and capital,
yeah. So I think like the decision making sometimes starts getting compromised. And maybe even in those scenarios, if you just actually go on and open up to your investor, for those of you who have actually raised money from, let's say, a VC, and you just actually go on and open up to an investor and show them what you're going through, I think they are reasonable people, and it would make your life a lot easier. But Maya, back to the question that I had for you. Is there any on a closing note, is there any learning that you'd like to share with all of us as you have gone through your career?
Cool. In GTM, there are a lot of like really nervous stages, right? Because you are just like describing right now the experience with investors or something like that, mental health, and just like well-being in terms of general health as well, because stresses will occur, situations that you would never anticipate will occur, your nervous system will go nuts. And it's really important not just like to have the strength to fight today, but also to fight tomorrow. It takes a toll on body, on mind, sometimes on relationships even. But what is really important is to just like communicate that you are doing this now for X amount of time. And if people can just like tolerate you, and if you sleep a little bit, this is why. It's not personal. And just like to maintain a biorhythm, which is like kind of sustainable to you, that you sleep a lot, lot, because not saying when you're getting older, but like everybody can live for a week from pizza and Monster energy drink, but try it for a month, you won't like yourself and you won't be that productive. So we are playing the short game, but we need to endure to play the long game.
Yeah, wow, I love that. I love that. I have not heard that before in these words, but I love it and I totally attest to it as well. Maja, where can people reach out to you if they wanted to? I'll, of course, hyperlink whatever you mentioned in the description.
Super. Thank you, Vikram. So I would love to invite our audience, our smart folks on LinkedIn, not only to follow me, but to also document that journey when we set it, right? I know a lot of technical founders who have won new deals for just like documenting their journey on LinkedIn. We get to meet amazing people. So maybe one challenge from my side would be to post at least once a week. And also in terms of connections that we are doing on LinkedIn. Look, if you listen to this podcast, I know that 95% of you will not send me a friend request. And maybe I will miss it if you don't say that you listen to this podcast, that you loved it, and you would love to continue the conversation. So make sure to outreach and stand out, because, if you don't say what you do, how other people will actually know that you are doing it as well. Otherwise, I have Substack as well, but I won't be bothering you with too much links. So if you are interested in this GTM space, definitely LinkedIn is the best place to start. But if you're really hooked on it and need solutions now, then definitely check out my book on Amazon.
Please do check out the book. I started reading it about 3 weeks back. It is lovely. It's so tactical. Yes. And it told me that the hard copy was going to take a while to deliver. So I just got started with a digital version and I'm loving it. Like I finished part of it. I referred a few things from there to like someone I've been talking to in general, who's also equally going through the go-to-market stage. So folks, please check that book out. It's lovely. And I say that as a founder who's trying to establish the GTM motion, or let's say scale it up. Maja, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for sharing the valuable insights. I hope you enjoyed it and I had a lovely time.
Thanks for listening. And you're such an amazing host. You could make me stay for another hour.
We should probably do part 2 sometime. Thank you.